What about your other gear? You are using some other Roland products as well, aren't you?
Yes, I use quite a few of their little pedals too, and I have one of those GT Pro rack mounts in my home recording studio. They make a lot of wonderful devices, you know, a lot of great little recorders. So yeah, lots of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, Frank, you have been proactive in promoting a way of picking, and people always ask you questions about your picking style.
Yes.
But now I'm not asking how to do it, but more or less about your mindset when you're doing. You do a lot of alternate picking, and then you switch over to sweeping. And technique comes easy for you, and so you don't have to plan ahead.
Not at all, no. After this long, you know, at first, of course, you have to, the technique, it's pretty well documented nowadays. Sweeping has become part of the fabric of electric guitar. You know, kids may not know who was the main proponent of it. I would have to say I'm probably the main proponent of this technique. Originally, the technique was because I had reached a sort of a physical barrier with strict alternate. It was a lot of work, and it sounded like a machine gun. I had reached a maximum with that, you know. And I thought, surely, you know, to play different kinds of ideas, there had to be a way. And so I was listening more to saxophone, and it really opened my eyes up to wider intervals and arpeggios that until I came along, really nobody had figured out this technique. It was this idea that existed like this tiny germ of an idea for years, but nobody took it and went exploded it. And that's what I did with the technique. I actually legitimized sweep picking, and in fact, when I came out with it, even when I published my first book back in the 80s, early 80s, speed picking, the publisher wouldn't allow me to use the word sweep picking, which is what it's known as now. But because there was no precedent, they said, we can't call it sweep picking, nobody knows what that is. So they called the book speed picking, which was close. But, you know, they had to give it a different name that people could probably latch onto, or at least what it was about, technically, like a technical. But there's so little written about the right hand on guitar. There's almost nothing. You look on the world market for books and guitar instructional product, and there's a handful of books, maybe 3, that deal with how to pick. And it's a major problem worldwide for guitarists. It's how to pick. Everybody talks about scales and arpeggios and the shapes and the voicings and the chords, and very few people say, okay, this is how you pick. You know, people talk about straight alternate, but very little is talked about the right hand, you know, so. And it's a fundamental problem. So after years and years of doing it, you know, I certainly don't have to think about it anymore when I play, no. It's second nature to me now.
And you're able to combine the technique with other than arpeggios. You
yeah.
Pentatonics and scalar
anything. Yeah, what people don't realize about sweeping is sweeping isn't always these, you know, these heavy metal 6-string arpeggios all the time, you know. It's, to me, the more interesting stuff is the little internal 2-string sweeps, you know, that are much more difficult to play, actually. So when I play, I just, I try to keep the motion as graceful as possible and logical. It just feels natural to me. You hear all these notes, but the right hand looks like it's in slow motion. It's because it's about the most efficient way to pick on the instrument. If you're going from one string to the next, it makes no sense to me to use an up and a down stroke across 2 strings, or a down and an up stroke. To me, it makes more sense to just one single motion. It's logical, takes more time to get it together, but it's more logical. A movement, it's less movement. It's like watching a good athlete. Somebody who's running, the greatest, fastest runner, the motion, every movement is precision. It's poetry in motion. Absolute minimum motion for the maximum effect. And that's what sweeping is, It's exactly what sweeping is.